Okay. 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 So uses of Galp. We figured out how the maths behind it really. Um, so how is Galp used? We know that there are three main uses. One is the primary use, which is actually to remake the RUBP. Second use is going to be to make glucose for cellular respiration for energy. That's the primary use. Second primary use, and the third primary use is going to be, well, I would say this is the secondary use, is to make all the other kinds of materials that are made from the 6-carbon glucose. So that can be to turn into 5-carbon compound to make a 4-carbon compound to be used to make nucleic acids by um, with help with phosphates from the soil. And so by this example, there is maltose or something. There's lipids, there's proteins, there's all other sorts of things. So yeah, GALP can be used to make RUBP. Carbohydrates, 2 moles of GALP used to form 1 mole of glucose. Glucose makes di and polysaccharides in condensation. Recall what glucose is. Glucose is a monosaccharide. Is glucose is a monosaccharide. Glucose monosaccharide. Yes. So glucose is your monosaccharide, and it can then form all the other types of di and polysaccharides via condensation using your enzymes and energy from ATP. GALP can be directly respired because we know that GALP is a sugar. It can be directly respired to produce ATPs required for these conversions. So so that's another thing. GALP can be used to produce ATP as well. Because look, when we say that glucose is broken down to get energy, okay, like your organics gives you energy. It's energy in the form of ATP, always, okay? Always in the form of ATP. So when we think of glucose and when we think of other sugars, and in this context, we're thinking about GALP, right? These break down to form ATP, which is your energy. ATP and energy are the same exact thing because you break ATP down and you couple that reaction with something that requires that energy. Javo, Javo, you come on. Yes. Right. How are we looking? We're looking pretty good. So, yep, that's a fun fact because we know. I was thinking about it. Since GALP is a sugar, can we use that to form ATP? Yep, we can. Lipids. Glucose produced used to make glycerol, and GP is used to make fatty acids to synthesize lipids. Glucose produced is used to make glycerol, and GP is used to make fatty acids to synthesize lipids. That's somewhat in the book, I think. Yeah, over here. GP is used to make glycerol, which is used to make lipids, not GALP. So I'm gonna write that down. What did we talk about? GP is used to make something. GALP is used to make something. It was these, right? The condensation reactions of these. Used to power reaction, condensation reaction to make dipolysaccharides from glucose. Okay. Okay. Glucose is used to make glycerol. GP makes glycerol. Glycerol makes lipids. Glycerol makes. I'm not sure what's going on here. Is it glycerol to glucose? What is glycerol? GP is used to make fatty acids. Okay. This is just okay. I'll just put this as a star because I have no idea. Proteins and nucleic acids. The glucose is converted to correct number of C and then combined with the nitrates and phosphates from the soil. So phosphates is obviously for the nucleic acids because you have the phosphate. You have the phosphate bridge, I think it's called. And for the nitrates is obviously you have the nitrogen, the amine group, right? I forgot how to draw a protein, but it's the amine group, and that's where the nitrogen is located, NH3. And so that's how you know that it's going to be used to make an amino acid for protein. And both of these come from soil. So yeah. Now limiting factors of photosynthesis, we already know it should be light temperature and carbon dioxide. Yeah, there you go. Light temperature, carbon dioxide. Anything else? No, right? These are factors that limit the rate of photosynthesis when they are in low levels, even if other factors are not limiting. That's how you define what a limiting factor is. A factor that limits the rate of something when they are in low levels, even if other factors are not limiting. As in, even if other factors are in high levels. Okay. Light. Both light intensity and wavelength affects the rate of photosynthesis. Low light intensity, because again, it's more like absorption of light, right? So if low light intensity means low absorption, or if a specific wavelength that you're using is bad at being absorbed by the chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, carotenoids, and I mean that's really the three main ones. What is it? Carotenoids, yeah. Okay. Both light intensity and wavelength will affect the rate of photosynthesis because it affects the rate of absorption, which affects the rate of photosynthesis. Low light intensity results in less excitation of electrons, so less ATP produced. Okay, that makes sense. Low light intensity results in less excitation. I don't know why they're not talking about it being absorbed. Less photolysis, less hydrogen ions, less NADP produced. And remember, these are things which will limit your LIR reactions, thus limiting photosynthesis in general. When you think about limiting the rate of photosynthesis, you can think about specifically how you limit the reactants used in photosynthesis. So in reactants used in photosynthesis, the main ones you can think of besides CO2 and H2O, think about the ones in the internal. Think about NADPH. Think about light. Light is a important reactant because and so how, okay, now use the process to describe, because look, limiting why, because LIR reactions depend on the NADPH and the ATP, because this is basically ATP, right? It relies on the NADPH and the ATP formed from these reactions. Okay, if these are lacking, it means LIR will be lacking, which means that photosynthesis will be lacking. Okay, so when light is low, ATP is low. When ATP is low, LIR is low, as well as the fact that when light is low, energy is low, NADPH formed is also low because photosynthesis is also low. As a result, LIR is going to be limited as well, even if the carbon dioxide constant was high, carbon dioxide input was high. Okay, by that same definition, carbon dioxide should also be a limiting factor, which means that if you have less CO2, it means that less carbon fixation, which means less GP, which means less GALP produced, lowering the rate of photosynthesis. Lastly, temperature, because all the reactions in the Calvin cycle are controlled by enzymes. It's very reasonable to say that temperature is an extremely important factor for controlling the rates of all of these, right? If you increase the temperature, you increase the kinetic energy of the Rubisco enzyme and its substrates. So more collisions and ES complexes form faster. As a result, enzyme activity also increases to increase the rate of photosynthesis. Okay. So remember, always, you learn this in IGCSE, always keep this in memory. Okay. More collisions. When you're talking about rate of reaction, okay, sure. Talk about more success. The increases the rate of successful collisions. Sure. When you're talking about enzyme activity, talk about how increasing your temperature results in more enzyme substrate complexes to be formed quicker. Okay, and as a result, that causes an increase in enzyme activity, or in your increase in photosynthesis. Okay, done. 25 is your optimum temp. As always, all enzymes, or most enzymes, will follow this. Light dependent reactions are independent of temp changes. Ah, wait, seriously? I heard that light dependent reactions work independently of temp. Does that mean that there are no enzymes involved here? You have protein complexes, which are enzymes. Okay, I didn't know that. Oh yeah, ATP synthase. Yeah. The rate limiting factor for light dependent reactions is light intensity, not temperature, under most normal. Enzyme activities here are very fast and already work efficiently. Risco transcatolase, and with no direct energy from photons, its rate is much more sensitive to temperature because those enzyme catalyst reactions depend heavily on kinetic energy in molecules. Light dependent reactions not equals to no enzymes. They're still full of enzymes, but their speed is mostly controlled by light availability rather than temperature, except at extreme temperatures. If you want, I can show you a temperature rate curve. No, it's okay. So now you can see the graphs of limiting factors of all those in play, except for temperature for some reason. Not sure why. Okay. Let's try to make sense of these. So carbon dioxide concentration, that means it's directly talking about LIR, okay? When you increase the what's going on? This side is high, this side is low carbon dioxide concentration. So you can see that on the left you have concentration of RUBP and GP, and you have time seconds. Remember, RUBP is not an enzyme, it's not a protein, it's a carbohydrate compound, okay? Five carbon compound. Not carbohydrate, sorry. Carbohydrate means sugar. It's not sugar. GP, on the other hand, that is also a carbohydrate compound. It's a 3-carbon compound, but it's not sugar. However, again, it can be used to make glycerol, used to make fatty acids, used to make lipids, okay? Cool. So RUBP That's GP and this is RUBP. So GP will always be at a higher concentration than RUBP. And the moment concentration of carbon dioxide decreases, then RUBP goes up and GP goes down. And I'll think about why. That means remaining, see, this is when the reaction is taking place and you're going and you're going and you're going and you're going and you're going. And most of the time RUBP will be used up. So that's why it's going to be low. Okay. Now, the moment where we've done this, that means the reaction has stopped. And where does the reaction always stop? The reaction stops at the step right before carbon dioxide fixing, and that's going to be when the RUBP is formed, waiting for the carbon dioxide input so that it can be catalyzed by Rubisco into forming the 6-carbon intermediate, into forming your GP. So if it's going to be waiting on this, therefore the RUBP should be increasing and the GP obviously will be decreasing because it's again just waiting on standby for that carbon dioxide input, right? Since it's waiting, GP is going to be reducing because it's going to be used up, it's going to be used, and the RUBP is going to be formed, and now we're just going to be on standby. RUBP is building up over here, and the GP is being emptied out over here. Okay, so therefore RUBP concentration will be increasing and GALP concentration will be decreasing. Simple as that. Both RUBP and GP levels constant until carbon dioxide is lowered. Reference to this in the Calvin cycle. RUBP at lower carbon dioxide levels, RUBP increases, then drops, then stays constant. Rises because it's being regenerated, falls as being used to fix carbon dioxide. So, see, the fact of the matter is that there is still some carbon dioxide here. Okay, that's my mistake. There's still some carbon dioxide here, so your carbon fixing is still going to occur, but of course at a lower rate. That's why you're still having GP over here. Now, over here, when the RUBP is being regenerated, it reaches a peak and then goes back down, because as this goes down, this builds up and then it reaches a peak until this starts concentrating downwards. And then all that excess is going to be used up into its normal amount, where then these two are going to be constant. Notice how the moment this reaches its plateau, this also reaches its plateau. That's not by coincidence, that's on purpose. Because as this decreases at a constant rate, this will be increasing at a constant rate. The moment this stops decreasing, this will stop increasing. Oh, well, it stops going above its supposed amount, I suppose. This is kind of hard to understand, but I think I get it. As it decreases, it's an excess, but then as it starts to, as it starts to slow down of some sort, then it starts to decrease as its excess gets used up, and then it reaches its new constant. Idea that RUBP level remains constant once a new equilibrium is reached. So these are equilibriums, right? Because it's a cycle, there's always new being formed and more being used up. So it's almost as if it's like RUBP having this kind of reaction with the GP, where GP is formed, but the moment GP is formed, RUBP can also be formed as GP is used up, which is true. As GP indirectly does this by forming GALP, and RUBP indirectly does this by using CO2. So it is almost an equilibrium, and in this case it is, and in this case it is. But when you change one side of the reactant, then the then the system will change, and that's what's going on here. At lower carbon dioxide levels, the GP level drops because less carbon dioxide to be able to convert into GP, and less carbon fixation. Levels out at a lower level as carbon dioxide still available but lower. Manipulation of figures. Over here we have changes in light intensity, so of course this is going to be talking about LDR reactions. Remember, light intensity is going to be focusing on both PS1 and PS2, and PS1 is going to be affecting on the amount of H+, which affects the amount of NADH, but NADPH also focuses on PS1's one, this is PS2, sorry. This is going to be focusing on PS1's one, which is also inevitably connected with NADPH, but this is most importantly being used to form ATP. Okay. Now, if CO2 is present but ATP is not present, therefore you're going to be having high amounts of GP but low amounts of GAP. Just want you to realize that. Okay, so we see here, as light intensity is increased, is high, then you have concentrations of GP, RUBP, TP at a constant thing. Now, the moment you decrease concentration of your light intensity, when the moment you decrease light intensity, what happens to these? TP, I'm guessing, is ATP. I'm not sure why it's like this. RUBP is this and GP is this. Moment light intensity decreases, TP is lowered, of course. What is TP? ATP and reduced NADP are needed to convert GP to TP. Is TP GALP? Yes, the TP is GALP. This is GALP. Okay. Light intensity is lowered, less ATP, less GALP. Light intensity is lowered. Why less RUBP? Because less GALP, less RUBP regenerated. Why higher GP? Because the conversion from... This is what I don't get though. If RUBP is low, how's GP high? Because since TP is being formed at a slower rate, there's a higher buildup of GP, so that's why it's increased. And then the moment you increase them back to high, then you're going to be having this. Reducing light intensity will reduce the rate of LLDR reactions of photosynthesis. This will reduce the quantity of ATP and reduce NADP produced. At ATP and reduced NADP are needed to convert GP into TP, so the concentration of GP will therefore increase and the concentration of TP will therefore decrease. As there will be less defeated region in RUBP, the concentration of RUBP will also decrease. The reverse will happen when the light intensity is increased. Okay. Okay, time to talk about Unit 5C finally. So, Sorry. What did I want to do? I wanted to. My body is warm. My body is warm. Okay. Do you have any viewers, maybe? No. That'd be so funny, though. This is extremely long. I don't know if I can finish this, dude. This is so long. There's so much bullshit. Okay. Anyways. Why is my pen different? I actually really like this level of thickness. This level of reasoning. Okay, ecosystem, feeding interactions, so organism to organism, of course. Between organisms occur in a form of a chain called food chain. Okay, organism to organism, remember, organism is not just animals, it's also plants, okay? Animals and plants. And thinking about how we were talking about energy and energetics, this is actually really good. I'm happy I went into 5.8 because this actually brings a lot of more light into this, because you have the energy brought up into here, and now here we have a different kind of energy formation, because we were discussing how energy is brought into a plant via photosynthesis, and this is obviously your autotroph, right? Autotrophic or autotroph, the autotroph mechanism of synthesizing your ATP. However, because you're forming organics from sunlight, you're breaking that down into ATP. However, now instead of actually forming the organics, well, you partially do, but you actually break them down from an actual animal and get the organics from there. So you're not producing the organics from your own self, you're actually just taking the organics from somewhere else. And so that's obviously called heterotrophy. So so that's what all these consumers are doing. The producers are the only ones who are autotrophically making that making those organics by themselves. So so the energy level, okay, for organisms in a food chain is called its trophic level. So there's different trophic levels depending on how many times that those organics have been passed on. Okay, so this is the first direct transfer of organics from the producer itself to the primary consumer. So you can tell that, hey, there must be a lot of energy, I mean like pure energy coming from the plant to this primary consumer. Heck, this guy might like is having the closest food, is eating the food closest from actual made from sunlight, you know, whereas this guy is mostly eating, not only is he eating the structural proteins and all the carbohydrates used to make his structure, but it's also eating the organics. Well, and those were made from the those were made via, you know, active reactions that required energy, which was only possible by eating the organics, only by eating the producers from which they obtain the organics to get the energy to do these, right? So so when a secondary consumer does eat a primary consumer, they are getting it is absorbing what was absorbed from the producer when the primary consumer ate it. So producers obviously make your food. These are using light from the sun. They trap light from the sun into your chlorophyll, into your photosystems. Remember, what is a photosystem? It is going to be your primary chlorophyll AB, and it's going to be your accessory pigments, and it's going to be what's the third one? Accessory pigments and associated proteins. And some of the examples for these proteins are they were listed in this ChatGPT post, and I kind of want to take a look at it again. So the proteins here are photosystem 1 2 proteins, especially the ones which are actually pigments. The pigments itself are protein complexes, so they are enzymes. There's the OEC, that complex also catalyzing water splitting, so that's obviously an enzyme. ATP synthase classic enzyme, ferredoxin NADP plus reductase. I've heard of this one before. Obviously, an enzyme that's used to catalyze the reaction of NADP to NADPH. So I'm just gonna make this a screenshot. I'm just gonna post this here. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's just put this on your boy World and Dominator as well. Dream and Discharger. Oh, this one's so bad. Okay, let's get it. Let's talk about the different energy levels. So there's your producer energy level, your primary consumer energy level, your secondary consumer energy level, tertiary consumer energy level, decomposer energy level, and there's going to be there's an entirely different food chain, separate, which is meant for decomposers, because they kind of bring them back into the soil so that they can actually be used to form a new to form the backbone, or essentially the foundation layer for the new for the already existing, or perhaps a new food chain. As where did these producers, where do these guys come from, right? These guys come from the soil, and the soil is essentially made from these decomposers. decomposer soil would not exist from the ashes or the leftovers of what these decomposers do. Um, they're your pioneer species, right? So, primary consumers, mainly herbivores, eat producers. The molecules in the plants and producers are their energy supply for metabolism. Secondary consumers, carnivores that eat herbivores, they use the molecules in the herbivores as the energy supply for their metabolism, as their organics for their energy supply for metabolism. These are all for metabolism because you need energy for what? Metabolism, for growing. Um, Tertiary consumers feed on other carnivores or on other secondary consumers, which can be carnivores. Tertiary consumers, I'm pretty sure, can also eat other tertiary consumers. They're the top predators in the area, unless there's a quaternary consumer, which is essentially the same thing. Decomposers are the final trophic level in any set of feeding relationships. Okay. They're the microorganisms like bacteria and fungi that break down the remains of every animal and every plant and return the minerals back into the soil. The soil is what of course the producers use to make all those proteins and nucleic acids, because it is from here where they get those phosphate ions, those nitrates, those not water, these ions, magnesium ions, all these special ions. Remember when we discussed the uses of magnesium, all the different kind of what's called mineral ions in the soil, the uses for all of those. Magnesium is of course used for your chlorophyll, actually. So a food web is these food chains joined together. A lot of group of food chains that join together. Most animals have a variety of food sources. That is actually that's brought up in your abiotic factors when referring to disease. It gives them chances to survive by having different food sources, which they can get to when one is blocked by disease, when they are weak and cannot hunt them. They don't exist in simple food chains, but as a part of complex interconnected food webs. The advantage of food web: each organism has more than one food source. Ecosystem is more stable, not easily disrupted if one food source falls. Remember, link this to your link is a funny term, but yes, link this to your topology rules in your ICT classes, right? Ecological pyramids representing a food chain. So your pyramid number. Pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, pyramid of energy. This is I didn't really I didn't really enjoy this. Here are some losses in a food chain. By the way, I think one of the problems with the food web, of course, is since each organism has more than one food source, it's a lot more difficult to actually do experiments and figure out certain causes and effects of these animals when discussing about their abiotic factors, or when talking about, if we remove the secondary consumer, what happens, because they're going to be eaten by a different secondary consumer, right? So yeah, that's kind of essentially why it's a lot harder to do this when you're it's a lot more harder to do this when you're taking food web into consideration rather than food chain into consideration. Also, I think this can also link to this. Ecological pyramid. Okay, represents the number of organisms at each trophic level, right? So this is abundance that we're looking at. Number of organisms decreases, of course, as you go up the level because there are more producers than primary consumers, and so on. If a primary pyramid of numbers is not shown, is not the normal pyramid shape. It is probably because the organisms in different sizes, in different levels, are very different sizes. Because there are obviously going to be less trees than there are going to be bushes, right? So if there's an area with just trees and no bushes, there's obviously going to be less producers in that area. Okay. So that might be why your plant one is smaller than something in the middle, for example, because these ones might be bugs and birds which live inside your trees, and these are super small, so you can have loads of them. But trees are super big, so you can only have so many of them, right? Pyramid of biomass. Pyramid of biomass represents the total mass at each trophic level. However, it's inaccurate because of wet and dry masses. Not all parts containing biomass are eaten by animals. Example, roots. So, and also pyramid of biomass represents the biomass at one point in time only, but biomass varies. So there's a lot of inaccuracies when using pyramid of biomass. Let's go over them one more time. It's hard to do pyramid of biomass because it's only fair to look at pyramid of biomass when you're measuring dry mass. However, you can only measure dry mass by killing it. So this is the first problem. You're measuring wet and dry mass. Now you could ask why can't we include wet mass? Because wet mass is temporary mass. It's not the constant mass. Not all parts containing biomass are eaten by animals. This is the second thing. Because we talk about biomass, which means it's the organics essentially which can be converted to glucose. Now there are some parts which contain glucose, which contain your organics, yet the animal does not eat it. For example, roots, right? Because I guess there's less in roots, but it's still something. Or perhaps it's the other way around, that this is considered biomass even if it doesn't contain any organic material. What song is this one? This is so good, dude. It's so good. What are we talking about? We talking about when talking about biomass, is stuff like roots not considered because it is made out of does roots fall under biomass? Do animals not eat roots because it contains no organic compounds? Okay, so yeah, it's fine. Period of energy, it's often the most accurate. It gives observations of a habitat over time. Last point I didn't actually mention is that pyramid of biomass represents the biomass of every organism in there, but only at that specific time. Because remember, even dry mass increases as the organism develops, right? So even that is not a proper thing because it's just that over at a single period of time. However, if you're taking the mass, the mean mass of all the trees, then I guess it's fine. Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, the biomass of a mature forest is obviously going to be a lot higher than like a young forest, right? Losses in the food chain, not all parts are eaten, digested like roots. Um, they do, just not by all animals. Some energy is lost in respiration during movement, reproduction, laying eggs. So losses in the food chain, as in where does the energy? Sometimes where does the energy? Where can it be? Given off. So over here it can be given off during obviously reproduction, movement, of course, laying eggs, kind of the same thing. So yeah, some energy is lost as a waste product such as urea. Now remember, energy is ATP. Energy can also be considered your organic compound. So urea contains some organic compounds, which means that when you waste out urea, that means you're wasting out organic compounds, which means you're wasting out energy. Okay? In the case of movement and reproduction, you're actually breaking your organics down into ATP so that you can and that energy and that ATP is broken down into energy. Okay, fine. That ATP is used up as energy. So so it's considered a loss because it's gone because they were using it. Notice how metabolism is not mentioned here, because metabolism, what is metabolism? Metabolism is using that energy to form something inside your body, but the thing is that isn't considered a waste because the next predator or the next person in line above the energy in a higher energy level can actually consume that what you've produced as metabolism, and absorb that for their own energy needs, right? So that's why that's not considered an energy loss or energy waste. Notice how all of these, energy is lost and is just dissipated into the like ATP is lost, dissipated into the atmosphere. Organics are broken down and dissipated into the atmosphere. Organics are not reused and into another thing that another animal can eat. This energy is gone and it cannot be it cannot be you're taken by an animal in the next energy level. So that energy is lost. It literally is lost. Oh my god, it's this song. So stupid. Gross primary productivity. So finally, we're going back into plants, specifically just the relationship between your producers and your primary consumers. Why are we looking at this? Because we are trying to specifically looking. I mean, on the topic of energy loss, right? What energy is made? What energy is used into metabolic reasons? What energy is used for? I don't know what these are called, but what energy is lost in respiration? Yeah, well, that's it, right? Respiration is the number one cause. Anything that's used for respiration is lost, right? So lost in respiration or metabolic reactions, these can be gotten and these are lost forever, right? So and then there's the waste. Waste is also essentially lost forever in a different form. And so on the topic of this, we're talking about when a producer does metabolic stuff with its energy and when it doesn't, how much of this is is enamored by your primary consumer, right? That's what we're trying to look at. So in this case, rate at which energy is being incorporated into your organic molecules using photosynthesis by plants and producers. This is obvious. This is just this is almost like how much photosynthesis is happening. Okay, so your plant gets sunlight and it produces organics via photosynthesis. Now, why are we specifically talking about organics? Because I mean, I guess when we talk about RUBP being formed, that's also being formed by photosynthesis. So can I think of GPP being the same thing as rate of photosynthesis? Yes, GPP is essentially the rate at which photosynthesis is happening, with one important clarification. GPP is total amount of chemical energy fixed as organic compounds, blah, blah, blah. Linked to photosynthesis rate, GPP is directly proportional to the photosynthetic rate of the plants present. On an economic level, GPP is basically the sum of all plants' photosynthetic rates. So if you're thinking of it in a conceptual way, GPP is around the rate of photosynthesis in an area. Why they're not 100% interchangeable? Because the rate of photosynthesis can be expressed in different ways per leaf, per plant, per meter squared, not always in total ecosystem output. GBP is an ecosystem scale measure, so it includes all plants and factors like canopy density, light penetration, etc. Also, GBP only counts the energy fixed into organic molecules. It doesn't directly measure things like oxygen output unless converted. Okay, I was thinking about what is an inorganic. Well, oxygen is organic, but it's going out, right? You can't measure oxygen unless you do that, which is pretty much impossible when you're talking about an ecosystem level, right? That's actually really good, yeah. Man, goosebumps, man. The feelings when I was listening to this. Yeah. Though I don't know if it was the perfect use case, but yeah, it was pretty good. What is resurrected player? Okay, that's spoilers. I'm good. What is the executioner? Oh, spoilers. Liberator. I know this one, I think. Yep. Man, the music is so good in this show, man. Holy shit. Who was working on this? Oh, god damn. The music in the show is so good. Still shy, huh? Still shy. Things never change. Some things never change. Oh my god. Alright, let's keep going. Um, okay, more or less, we can think about it this way, but it's not exactly the same. There is some nuance. Anyways, NPPs, the important parts. The rate at which energy. Okay, wait, hold on. Used. Okay, let's talk about NPP before going into that picture. So, the rate at which energy is transferred into the organic molecules that make up the new plant biomass, accounting for respiration losses, NPP GPP minus R, where R is plant respiration in plants producers. R is exactly the respiration things where it's lost. This energy cannot be brought by this energy cannot be inherited by the primary producer, primary consumer. Okay. Um, so this is not accounting for respiration losses. This is accounting for respiration losses. That's all NPP is. Okay. And that's the thing. A lot can be lost via NP. A lot can be lost, especially when the plant is growing in its growing stage. The NPP could be quite large, especially maybe when it's easily damaged or something, right? So over here in this case, we're seeing that incident sunlight, then you have used to evaporate water from leaves, reflected off of leaf, transmitted through leaf, respiration and exothermic reactions. So this is how energy is lost via respiration and exothermic reactions. But besides that, this is this much light that's coming through, but only 3% is actually brought into the plant. So that's going to be your 3% GPP. And then but you have to realize a lot of the light is not absorbed. Okay. This is actually one of the things that I was actually supposed to read over here. It's not the same thing, but this is actually talking about the efficiency of Rubisco, but I don't think it's super important in this case right now. Anyways, I think we're fine. I think we can just keep going. So very little of a light energy incident is actually used for GPP. Reasons because light is reflected, light is transmitted, light doesn't hit chlorophyll, wrong wavelength of light. Okay. Because remember, when we look at the wavelength of light, we only saw a small margin where you had that, and that's it. No other wavelength of the light is used, and so you gotta understand, how much is actually absorbed. Here we have another one where you see per year how the GPP and NPP grows and how the difference increases as you're going through. And as you can see, I'm not sure what we're actually looking at. But I could imagine that as the plant matures and stops its metabolic reactions, then NPP will close into GPP a lot more. Okay. Well, heck, GPP might decrease as well because it doesn't need to really produce photosynthesis anymore. Maybe it can do photosynthesis, but not, use that many respiration reaction. It'll do less respiration because it doesn't need that much metabolic stuff anymore. No, respiration is not metabolic. Metabolic reactions is what I think of reactions that produce like physical that reactions that physically develop the organism and let it grow, which also means that energy that these reactions are powered by energy which is obtained from organics. However, that energy is not lost, is not lost from the higher energy level consumer, because the developed organism contains organics that can be used for energy. So technically no energy, less energy isn't lost. However, for respiration, energy is lost entirely from the next energy level consumer. But isn't respiration used for metabolic reactions? You're mixing energy flow with matter flow and you're thinking about them as if they behave the same way. Let's tackle it step by step. Metabolic reactions. All the chemical reactions in an organism, both anabolic, building molecules in tissues, and catabolic, breaking molecules down. These are all chemical reactions in an organism. These anabolic ones, growth, repair, biosynthesis, require energy, and that energy comes from mostly respiration. So yes, respiration fuels metabolic reactions. Where does energy come from? Energy from metabolic reactions come from organic molecules, carbs, fats, proteins. These organics have chemical bond energy that's released during respiration. Why the energy isn't kept for the next consumer? Here's the key. When an organism respires, most of that bond energy is converted to heat through ATP use and inefficiencies. That heat is dissipated into the environment, cannot be brought back into the next. This is why it's exothermic. Remember, they brought up both respiration and exothermic reactions, right? So when an organism respires, most of that bond energy is converted to heat through ATP use and inefficiencies, so that heat is dissipated into the environment, cannot be recaptured by the next consumer. The matter organic molecules used in respiration is broken down to CO2 plus H2O, which have much less chemical energy than the original organics. So those specific molecules are they're gone as a food source. They're now waste products. But what's left for the next trophic level? Only the organic matter that wasn't broken down in respiration. The biomass that's used to build tissues is available for the next consumer. That's why NPP is equals to GPP minus respiration. Represents the energy that's actually stored in the biomass and passed on. Respiration is essential for metabolic reactions, but it burns up organic matter. It burns up organic matter's chemical energy in the process. The energy lost as heat in respiration is permanently unavailable to higher trophic levels. I don't know why I say energy levels, trophic levels, sorry. What remains is the biomass stored organics that the next consumer can eat, which contains less energy than what the organism originally fixed. Okay, so which means that when doing catabolic reactions, it's not that the new built parts of the organism contains the organics that was used to fuel the metabolic the respiration reactions needed for these catabolic reactions. It's the leftover stored organics that primarily make it to the next trophic level. All of the catabolic reactions used, all of the fuel, the organic fuel that's needed for catabolic reactions to develop an organism is lost in the form of heat energy, That's unobtainable. Remember to put it in trophic terms afterwards. So GPP is going to be your total organic matter made. Respiration burned some of that organic matter for energy. Net primary productivity is NPP, the leftover organic matter that can actually be eaten by the next trophic level. If you want, I can explain how this connects to the 10% rule of trophic pyramids. It's the same reason why most of the energy doesn't make it to the next level. Is this from the fighting game? Shut up. How do I check his memory? Okay, fine, whatever. I'm wasting time. Let's take a little break. Let's take a little break. Supreme Director. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't. Okay. About beginners from 500 to 1119. Okay. Flexible, versatile openings that allow for a player to dictate the game's style of play at various points. Positional, calculated strategic openings that, nah. Defensive, I like defensive, but I don't think so. Aggressive, openings that aim for a fast-paced dynamic game with lots of tactical chances. I do like that, often for both sides. Unconventional openings that might not be 100% sound, but it might catch your opponent's off guard and lead to exciting tactical chances. That sounds really fun as well. Oh, I can both. Hell yeah. Scotch Gambit. There you go. Let's go. That's exactly what I wanted for white. And for black, they said Albin counter gambit and Stanford gambit. Obviously there's the Sicilian. Okay, they said e5, d5, right? So what is this? This is... How do I know? Starting move, e4 is Stafford gambit, and d4, Albin counter gambit. Okay, that's perfect actually. Yeah, honestly that's fine. Confirm, and go back to library and confirm the Stafford gambit as well. Cool, I'm very excited actually about this. I hope it's free, I'm not sure actually. Join the community. Discord? Oh! Discord, yes! Why am I still talking? I don't know. I should probably just put this on. How long have I been live for? 3 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours 30? Funny. 2 hours 30. Just talking about traveling to Spain and shit. Good for him. Can we get more coal miners? No. Okay. It's good. It's good. It's good. 286. It's good. We are at 1.33. That's good. That's very good. We can get another one. 0.35. We can afford it at 1977 steel. So that should not take too long. Okay, cool. I think we're done. Let's continue. Yeah, okay. Okay, wasted a bit of time, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, god damn, it's already 10:20. Crap. Oh, what are we doing here, man? Therefore, abiotic and biotic factors, GPP and NPP that affect plant growth. Okay. Yep, makes sense. Biotic factors that affect these will affect, so let's say larger plants growing on top of a plant, and thus decreasing the amount of GPP will affect plant growth inevitably because it affects GPP. GPP is the organic matter produced as a result of photosynthesis, while NPP is the organic matter available that is transferred after essentially respiration losses. That can be catabolic reactions. The other one, exothermic losses. Essentially, all of those. Okay, GPP is the leftover stored organic matter that's left, that is available, that can be transferred to the next trophic level. Okay, anything else that is lost due to respiration, see, when we talk about respiration, we're talking about energy lost that is not transferable. Okay, the process of making new animal biomass in consumers is known as secondary production. This is pretty important. This is what I think about sometimes. How do animals create new biomass, right? Apart from eating their own biomass, is there a way that they create new biomass? I'm not sure. How can animals, apart from producers, create biomass? They can create biomass, but they can't fix new energy into ecosystem the way producers do. How animals create biomass? When an animal eats organic matter, it digests it into smaller molecules. Some of those molecules are burned into respiration, burned via respiration for energy. The rest is assimilated into the animal's own tissues. That new tissue is biomass. It's just repackaged from the producer's biomass into consumer biomass. This is what I've been thinking about essentially. Okay, let me turn off the AC. 1 second. So again, imagine you have, let's say, 50 grams of organic molecules, okay? You use 10 of those grams for respiration so that you have energy. Let's say you got exactly 10 energy out of it, okay? 10 ATP. Okay. Now, using that ATP to turn your 40 grams into 40 grams, but it's now like part of your body, like it's just there. I don't know how to describe this, but it's there. Now, Okay, 1 second. 40 grams, okay? Now this 40 grams can obviously be transferred to your your secondary consumer, right? A consumer higher up in the higher trophic level, essentially. But this 10 ATP, when it's trying to turn that 40 into 40 grams, which is eatable or which is transferable, this ATP is used up, and therefore now you have 0 ATP left. Where did that ATP go? It is dissipated as heat energy. So this energy is not transferable to your secondary consumer or your higher trophic level. It's entirely gone. Okay. The rest is assimilated into the animal's own tissues. The new tissue is called biomass. Can only take existing organic matter and turn some of it into their own biomass. That's essentially what's going on here is secondary production, where they're turning the 40 grams of organics from the plant into 40 grams of biomass of their own tissue that is eatable, that is also organic, and that's transferable to the higher trophic level. So it's essentially turning your organics that you got from the plant into organics that is your biomass. Because the things that you eat is not essentially considered biomass. That's considered just what you eat. That's just considered food as sustenance. That's just considered organics. But an biomass is organics that can be weighed down. Biomass is organics that can be transferred to the higher trophic level. Okay. Limitations of your efficiency calculating, right? How is the percentage energy of biomass transfer calculated? This involves a simple percentage calculation. This much per year of energy is available. This much per year per annum is transferred into new herbivore material at the next trophic level. The remainder is transferred to the surroundings. So this is essentially GPP. The rest is lost. So, limitations of efficiency calculations is all abundant species must be identified. Essentially what they're trying to say is when you have a herbivore, it's taking food from multiple places, multiple species, multiple producers. This is producer species. Okay. If you want to calculate the efficiency of one, it's difficult to do this because, or maybe you want to calculate the efficiency of all. It's hard to do this because there might be another one that's affecting it as well, right? So without knowing all of them, it's always difficult to calculate efficiency because efficiency is like, you know, the numbers, but the numbers might be wrong, right? I think that's what I'm getting. Number of organisms, average size, how much energy it represents has to be known. That's a limitation because this cannot be 100% accurate. How much biomass is transferred between trophic levels also needs to be known because it's also hard to know that. There's losses always. And as well as the fact that it's like dry mass, right? Dry mass and wet mass. So that's also biomass. Measuring biomass is always difficult. Energy transfer and food chain length. There is energy loss at each trophic level. Only very little energy passes along to the next trophic level. All of the organisms on a higher trophic level cannot be sustained. Therefore, as more energy is needed to find food and mate than received from the food chain. Sorry, what? All the organisms on higher trophic levels cannot be sustained, therefore. So I guess they're literally saying that if you want to find food and mate, more energy is required, but that's more difficult, more than is received from the food chain. Sorry. Is it the third? Yeah. The third point means that so much energy is lost at each trophic level that there's not enough energy to support a large population of organisms in the higher levels of food chain. Which states that on a 10% rule, which states that on average only 10% of the energy from one trophic level is converted into biomass and transferred to the next. The remaining 90% is lost to the environment primarily as heat through metabolic processes like respiration, movement, and waste. Yep. Getting there. Not that far away. Still a few pages away.
To finish?
Yeah.
Okay, কালকে করবো না কি করবো?
একটু আর করতে চাই।
কতক্ষণ? Half an hour?
Sure.
Okay. Half an hour পড়ার জন্য দাও, আবার অন্য জিনিসের জন্য দিও না বাবা।
Limited food chain length. Because of the massive energy loss, food chains are typically short with maximum of 4 to 5 trophic levels. That after a certain point, there simply isn't enough energy to sustain another level of consumers. Fewer organisms at higher trophic levels, since there is a large biomass of producers, but this supports a smaller biomass of primary consumers. This in turn supports an even smaller biomass of secondary consumers, carnivores, and so on. This concept of visualized by an ecological pyramid of energy, which shows the total amount of energy decreasing significantly at its successive level. The energy cost of being a predator. The extra sentence in your image highlights a key reason for the energy loss. Predators on higher trophic levels might often have to expend a significant amount of energy just to find and capture their food, as well as reproduce and maintain their body temperature. This energy is used for living and is not available to be transferred for the next trophic level. Hmm. Okay, cool. Alright. Oh, okay. Man, this is hard. We'll do that later. Finally talking about carbon cycle, huh? Always comes back to this. Ammo, I have a question. আমি এত জিনিস করছি,
I'm just saying tomorrow can you remind me to organize my cupboard? Really needs to know. তোমার বেডের উপর দেখছো? Yeah. কোথায় রাখলা ওগুলো? আমি এখনই ফোন করে নিয়ে ঢুকে দাও। My whole cupboard is messy and I need to clean it, so it's fine. হ্যাঁ বলো। করতেছো?
So আমি কোয়েশ্চেন করতেছি যে আমি সিলেবাস আমি কভার করছি তাড়াতাড়ি করে।
পরে যে ভুলে যাবে?
Yeah, as usual আমি যে করে।
হ্যাঁ, তো এটার জন্য কি করতে হবে তাহলে?
I'm trying to think যে the plan is আমি just cover করবো. When do I look back and like review? Because I have worksheets where I can complete past paper questions, like a bunch of them, and that I think that should do fine as a review. But like,
past paper দিয়ে তো review করবো।
okay.
And keep on doing so that you don't forget.
But while I'm going ahead with the syllabus this next month, when will I look back?
ফাইজান তুমি এবার দিয়ে IGCSE দিছো, দুইটা বোর্ড এক্সাম দিলা, এখন পর্যন্ত এই সেম জায়গাতে আটকে আছো।
Yeah, because I never found the answer.
তো ওই যে জিনিসটা যে রিসেন্টলি বার করেছে, ও তো বেস্ট এই কোশ্চেনের জন্য। Asking me how did you do it? Can you suggest me? This is always a question for me, and I could not find out a good way of doing it because this is how I do it, and then I forget, and then it becomes useless. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes.
একদম প্রথম কোশ্চেন ওর সঙ্গে এটা বলবো। ও তো কোনো নোট পাঠাতে চাচ্ছে, পাঠাইছে?
No, I think he's gonna do that inside the class.
Okay. Okay, তুমি আমাকে বলো তুমি কি কোশ্চেনটা আবার বলো তো? Like for what is the subject? Biology কথা বলতেছো যে how you will review it.
Yeah, because after I finish biology's full syllabus, say I finished the biology's full syllabus, that's a lot of information that's only staying in my brain temporarily. And next I'm going straight into chemistry, or I'll be doing both simultaneously. True. But okay, so let's say I complete half of biology, half is left, but I start chemistry now. So now as I'm studying chemistry, this is temporary. This stuff that I've studied, this is only temporary. It can go and disappear. Like I can forget. So it's like while I'm studying the new syllabus for chemistry, how do I like look back?
তোমার কি যেটা শিখো সেটার উপরে কোনো টেস্ট নেওয়ার কোনো ইয়ে নাই?
Yes,
লাইক
আছে,
ওয়ার্কশিট আছে,
আছে,
এটা আছে, ওটা
আছে।
আছে, তো সেগুলো করো।
I'm bad at doing them
That is the
consistently.
reason. That is the reason you are forgetting it.
Okay, it's because I'm bad at balancing it. Usually, no, I'm just bad at studying in general. I'm just I get easily distracted and stuff. Okay, yeah. Okay.
তো আমার কাছে যেটা মনে হচ্ছে তুমি ওই ছেলেটার সঙ্গে যখন পড়বা, this is what you make sure to do with him. তুমি ওকে একটা গাইডলাইন দিবা, প্রথমে ওকে জিজ্ঞেস করবো যে how did you do it? Okay, like this is the problem, I forget and I am very bad at doing like the past paper or worksheets on my own so that I don't forget. So what should I follow or how I will do it with you?
My only problem is inconsistency. I don't have any problems.
Exactly, that's why I told him to be with you.
He can solve my inconsistency?
Yes, তুমি ওর সঙ্গে প্রথমে সিলেবাস কমপ্লিট করবা, এরপর তুমি শুরু করবে ওর সঙ্গে 5 পেপার সলভ করা বা ওই কোশ্চেন ওয়ার্কশিটগুলো সলভ করা।
Okay, but I'm
That
just
1 hour you will give for chemistry to solve your worksheets. Try to understand Faizan. আমি ওকে বলছি যে তোমাকে সিলেবাস কমপ্লিট করা দিতে, কিন্তু আমি এরপরে ওকে বলবো যে না তুমি when it is over you're not going to leave, he will be doing test and worksheets with you.
okay.
তুমি আটকাবা, তুমি কারেকশন করে দিবে, তুমি করবা, করার পরে ওর সঙ্গে ওকে দিয়ে চেক করাবা. These are the things you will do.
I don't know how useful that would be, but okay. Because again, you already know my only problem is consistency. It's not
আমি
anything.
আবারও তো বললাম কনসিস্টেন্সি নাই, ওর জন্যই তো আমি বলেছি সো দ্যাট যেই জিনিসটা তোমার একার করার কথা ছিল ইউ উইল ডু উইথ হিম.
It just feels so weird doing that.
I know, but they do it. বাংলাদেশের সব
That's why they do it. I feel like they only do it because they actually have some kind of actual like intellectual problem. I don't understand this. I need a teacher's help. I don't feel like that. I never say I cannot understand this. I need to go to school, get a
No.
teacher's help to solve it.
No,
That's not why they do it.
no.
They do it because they're just too lazy. They can't do it by themselves. Because that's exactly why I'm doing it.
অনেক বেশিরভাগ বাচ্চারাই তো নিজে
Concentrate করতে পারে না।
হ্যাঁ কনসেন্ট্রেট করতে পারে না, নিজে করতে গেলে হয়তো সে 10% করতো,
As in because concentrate করতে পারে না।
No, it is not like that.
Because আমি concentrate করতে পারি না।
তোমার একটু বেশি, কিন্তু তুমি যদি কাউকে মানে ভেরি রেয়ারলি তুমি পাবা যে ওই লেভেলে প্র্যাকটিস করবে। ওরা এত এক্সিলেন্স করতে চায়, মানে প্র্যাকটিসের লেভেলটাকে এত বেশি করতে চায়, এত বেশি সময় এত বেশি আওয়ার দিয়ে ওই প্র্যাকটিসগুলো করতে চায়, এক্সট্রা আরও এগুলো নেয়। কারণ ও বাসায় যতটুকু করবে দ্যাট উইল নট বি সাফিসিয়েন্ট। এখন তুমি ওরা হয়তো যতটুকু নিজে করে তার থেকেও তুমি কম করো, দ্যাট ডাজেন্ট মিন যে ওদের কোনো কিছুতে বাধেই না। অবশ্যই বাধে, তোমারও বাধে, ওদেরও বাধে।
বাংলাদেশিরা কি করে যে ওরা বাসায় পড়ে,
পড়া তো তোমাকে বাসাতে পড়তেই হবে।
ওকে,
ইভেন তুমি যখন এর সঙ্গে করবে তোমাকে নিজে করতে হবে।
I don't understand why do they go to coaching then?
But you will ask me. 10:50 বাজে ফেলেন একটু ফাস্ট করো।
Besides laziness, I can't think of a single reason why not to go to coaching.
তোমার যদি এটাই প্রয়োজন হয় তো ওকে, is there anything wrong in it?
Well, yeah.
No, you want to punish yourself because you are lazy, so you should not be going to but if you are in Bangladesh and you are lazy, you will not be going to the coaching center because you are lazy to do it.
I don't know. It's just in my
No,
it just doesn't.
Though you are not able to do it by yourself, though you are getting because of that you are getting bad grades, you don't want to do it. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Same size now. Okay, so after learning about how the organic matter goes up each carbon level, now we talk about not the ecosystem but the environment in general. Specifically, where is this carbon coming from? Because carbon is not just from producers, carbon is not just from other animals, it's not just between these interactions of organisms, but it's also sometimes stored in organisms for long periods of time. It's stored in the ground, it's stored in inorganic pieces of like land and stuff where you wouldn't Hmm. In unobtainable forms, right? You can't break down carbonate rocks and get organics so that you can make energy. I know you, but you kind of can, no? That's what we do in carbon in fossil fuels, right? We combust it so that we get energy. Energy is being released here. 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 Energy is not being, okay. These aren't necessary. These are just changing the form of your carbon, right? Hmm. Most of your most of your carbon is going to be in marine sediments and sedimentary rocks. You can think of this as being the most long-lasting one, right? Fossil fuel deposits sits at 4,000, where atmosphere is at this much, and this is increasing as you burn more of these, right? As this decreases, this increases. Terrestrial plants as well. It's not that many at all. That's an insane number, no? Ocean also has a lot. Soil organic matter has a lot more than terrestrial plants, because this is kind of where the decomposition kind of occurs. You know, when you have the dead organic matter inside the soil, of both your producers and consumers. However, this decreases over time as you have where you have decomposers, you taking that and respiring with it, so that carbon goes out as CO2. Okay, it's not necessarily we're saying that when we respire, it's like we're pushing organics. See, not all organics can be used. No, but it can. CO2 is exactly that. CO2 is exactly used in photosynthesis, in carbon fixing, to produce energy. No, to produce glucose, to produce. So you're using this organic to make an organic. So it's not as though CO2 itself is something that is. It's not as though CO2 is the organic to make energy. CO2 is a very important piece of very important reactant that's involved in the formation of energy in plants, not in animals though. Greenhouse effect. Alright, 1 second. it's been 5 minutes.
সকালে ফজর উঠতে পারবো না তো
I slept at 11:30 yesterday. So just give.
এখন তোমার খাওয়া বাকি আছে কালকে একটু শেষ করে নিয়ে তুমি পড়াশোনা করবে আর তুমি আমাকে বলো এটা যে তুমি পড়লা না এখানে এটা কোথায় এই ওয়ার্কশিট পাওয়া যায় আমাকে একটু লিঙ্কটা দিয়ে রাখো তো আমি তোমাকে একটা করে দিব তুমি 1 ঘন্টায় ওটা শেষ করে দিবা
It's not a worksheet. I'll just show you. It's like.
শো করো না আমাকে জাস্ট শেয়ার করো না
It's like this. Yeah. So this is for chapter A, and it's just a collection of all the questions that they could find. All this is like 33 pages of these questions.
same unit
It's not that many questions. Yeah, same. It's the same topic. Some questions might be wrong, like they're a part of a different topic, but most of these questions are part of the same topic.
Okay, এটা আমাকে দিয়ে রাখো
There's also this one. Chapter 5, B and C are joined together because they are similar in their content. So this one is a very long. It's 124 pages. So there's a lot of questions here.
তুমি জাস্ট দিয়ে আমাকে নোট দিয়ে রাখো দিস ইজ অন 5A 5B 5C কোনটার উপরে আমাকে দিয়ে রাখো তুমি কালকে পরীক্ষা দিবা না তুমি লাইক পরীক্ষা দিবা একদিন পর ঠিক আছে আমি তোমাকে দিব তুমি বসে থেকে করবা
Okay. The answers I can't share to you. Answers are in like a Google Drive and it's hard to share that. So.
না আমি আনসার
You
চেক
can't-
করতে পারবো না ইউ উইল চেক
Yeah,
আনসার ইন ফ্রন্ট অফ
yeah.
মি এন্ড আই উইল সি হাউ মাচ ইউ কেমন করতেছো আর এগুলা মানে শুধু যে আমার কাছে মানে এখন আমি করাবো এই না মানে এটা রেগুলার বেসিসে যেন তোমার তুমি যেন ভুলে না যেন কিপ উই উইল কিপ অন রিপিটিং অ্যাট লিস্ট ফর লাইক 1 month then you will go to past paper eventually when you will finish
These
the
are
entire syllabus
these are from these past papers. That's the only.
লেখা আছে না 5BC 5A okay bas that's it
That's the only problem though. These are questions coming from past papers. So that's like the thing. It's when I do past papers, like these questions, like I might like recognize some of these questions. Obviously,
so
I
what
can't.
is the problem it is good না যে তুমি অলরেডি পাস পেপারের কোশ্চেন তুমি ওয়ার্কশিটে করে ফেলছো
Okay, fine. If you think that, then okay, that's good. Okay.
ডেফিনেটলি
তাহলে let me just continue this a little bit.
তুমি তো করতেছো মাত্র 2টা কিন্তু এই দুইটাতে দেখা যাচ্ছে হয়তো 10টা পাস পেপারের কোশ্চেন আছে তাই না তো ভালো তো এটা
Okay.
ওয়ান্স দ্য সিলেবাস ইজ ওভার এভাবে করে তুমি আমাকে দিতে থাকবে একটা করে শেষ করবা আমাকে পাঠাবা একটা করে শেষ করবা আমাকে পাঠাবা ঠিক আছে
Okay, but you know, it's like that's the thing. These are pretty big worksheets. You're probably going to have to be like solve like from this question to this question. So like since there's like 33 pages, 124 pages here, it's like solve question 1 to question like question 12 or something.
আচ্ছা ইয়েস সেটা তোমার একটা কোশ্চেনে কতক্ষণ লাগছে আমি একদিন বসে থেকে দেখবো যে তুমি আসলে মানে পরীক্ষার সময় কতটুকু সময় দিতে হয় একটা কোশ্চেনে আর এখানে তুমি
Usually the amount of marks tells you how much time, like 12
Okay.
marks, 12 minutes, maybe maximum 15 minutes, something like that.
12 মার্কে 12 মিনিট
No, like 15 minutes or something like that. Right?
15 মিনিট ফর 12 মার্ক
This is 12 marks as in like 3, 2, 2.
ওকে ওকে সব মিলায় আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে বুঝছি ওকে ঠিক আছে একটা কুইক রিভিউ দিতে দিব আমি তোমাকে লাইক হাফ অ্যান আওয়ারের একটা কুইক রিভিউ দিতে দিব এরপর বলবো যে ওকে ইউ ডান নাও ইউ হ্যাভ টু ডু এক্সাম একদম টাইম ধরে এভাবে করে করবো ম্যাথ ক্লাস কবে আবার
Sunday. I'm on Monday.
ওকে
So বন্ধ করবো.
হ্যাঁ বন্ধ করো
Okay.
কতটুকু আছে
There's quite a bit. It's like
ইয়া সো তুমি সকালবেলা উঠে আবার ওই
just
মুডে চলে যাও না
I It'll take some time for me to get out of that mood. Okay, wait, one.
না তোমার গেট আউট হইতে হইতে কয়টা মানে কয়টা বিট হয় না ফেজান এন্টায়ার ডে হয়ে যায়
How? Didn't take me an entire day. Multiple times I got into that mood today. Didn't take me multiple times. I didn't take me an entire day to get out.
আজকের কথা বলতেছি না আমি ইউজুয়ালি যেটা করো তুমি সেটা বলছি
So আজকে নতুন জিনিস কি হলো?
এখন এটা তো তুমি করতেছো 5 না তোমার আসলে এর আগে কতগুলো করছো ও দিস ইজ দ্য স্টার্টিং সো 5 and 6 এই দুটো মিলে দেন তারপরে
That's every for
না
this year.
তারপরের ইয়ারে বলতেছি মানে পরের
তাহলে তারপরে it's just 7 and 8. 6, তারপর 7 and 8. I'm pretty sure.
আচ্ছা আমাকে একটু বলো তো এখন তুমি যত মাস টাইম পাচ্ছ কম্পেয়ার টু দ্যাট তুমি জানুয়ারির পরে এই যে পোর্শনটা ওটাতে কত টাইম পাবা এবং ওইটা এটা থেকে বেশি না কম
I mean, দেখে it's কম.
সো ওর সঙ্গে যখন তুমি বসবা তোমার বায়োলজি নিয়েও তুমি ডিসকাস করবা যে এনি গিভ ম্যান আইডিয়া শুড আই মানে ডু সাম কি বলবো সিলেবাস কাভার্ড অর আপফ্রন্ট বিকজ
Yes, I'm planning to do that anyway. Like, because see,
তাহলে তো ও বলতেছে যে 4 ইউনিট 4 ইজ ভেরি স্মল ইউনিট নাকি
yeah,
ইউনিট 4 ইজ ভেরি স্মল সো তাহলে তুমি
it
ওটা
doesn't look small. Okay.
ওটা শেষ করে ওটার উপরে তুমি পরীক্ষা টরীক্ষা দিয়ে মোটামুটি যখন কনফিডেন্স লেভেল আসবে দেন ইউ গো ফার্দার যেন পরে যে তোমার প্রেশার বেশি না পড়ে
I mean, one good thing about doing those question paper that I just showed you is that since those contain past papers, I'm kind of doing past paper revision as well as just topic revision. So, in that sense, bhalo. Because I don't need to have a separate time where I'm just doing past papers. I will, but
5
I
এর
don't think
যতগুলো কোর্স সবগুলোর পাস পেপার আমাকে আমার কাছে দিয়ে রাখো
shop
6
past paper.
মানে পাস পেপার না ওই যে
Okay.
ওয়ার্কশিটগুলো প্লাস 6 এরও দিবা যখন 6 করবা তখন
Okay.
একটা করে শেষ করবা আমাকে দিয়ে রাখবা
There's also some exam practice from the textbook. ওটাও করতে পারি. There's 3, 1 for every subchapter.
তো এটা কালকে করে শেষ করো তারপরে তুমি ওই পাস পেপার করবা কালকে 5 এর এই সহকারে শেষ করো
I'll do all of them, yeah.